Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for taking the time to join us for our 14th webinar in the Zeald series, Keep Calm and Get Digital. My name is Lisa, and I'll be your moderator for today's webinar. We are on the second day of Alert Level 2, where many stores and workplaces are being able to reopen, but are needing to have contact tracing and sanitation practices in place and focus on not having too many people in the store. This is fantastic for both businesses and for those who wish to still enter a store to shop. But what about that though? But what about those that don't? We know that COVID-19 did force a lot of people to try online shopping, and for some, that's their new way to shop. So if you aren't online yet, why not? And if you are online, are you giving your website enough attention to stand out from others? Today's topic, how to audit your own website and marketing, we'll be covering some quick and easy steps you can do one by one to help your website. Our speaker today really needs no introduction, but we'll be getting one anyway. He has a breadth of knowledge on everything digital, and with his role as our senior digital strategist and Tauranga, our agency manager, he is no stranger to helping business owners realise their website potential and putting a strategy in place to achieve. Please join me in welcoming the insightful Jara Borman to the webinar. I'm also very excited to have Tom Griffiths join us for the discussion panel today. Tom is a digital-focused strategist who, over the last 6 weeks, has been at the forefront with smaller businesses to provide best practice advice in the COVID-19 world and beyond. Might help if I switch the screen around, sorry.
Yeah,
my bad there.
Lisa.
So into my introduction today. So just a short bit of housekeeping as well. So if you haven't joined us before, there's a few rules. And first of all, if you can't hear anything, there's audio settings down in the bottom of your screen that you can play around with to hear us. How do you ask a question, you may ask? So the chat is a good way to get in contact with us. You can also use the Q&A, in particular in our Q&A session at the discussion panel end of the webinar. Raise hand. So raise hand means raising your hand if you would actually like to speak. And if you do so, then you'll just need to unmute your mic once we allow that and you'll be able to ask your question to us directly. And if you've missed something, we do post all our webinars on YouTube. So afterwards, you will receive an email with that link and you'll be able to go see it. So from there, I'd like to hand across to Jara to take us into today's webinar topic.
Cool. Thank you. Thank you very much, Lisa, for that lovely introduction. And welcome one and all to our webinar today. Nice to see some familiar names there as well. So yeah, there's some that keep coming back and joining us for each of our webinars. We really appreciate you taking some time out and hope you're getting some value out of what we provide through this webinar series. Today's session is how to learn how to audit your own website and marketing. So this is, sometimes when looking at this sort of thing, you can see that there's a lot of things you may not be doing right and can consider this to be kind of quite negative. I like to frame it that these are the opportunities for you to really improve the way that you operate online. So what we're going to talk about today, just some tips and tricks on how you can approach this space and maybe just start working your way through some opportunities to do better online. All right, no one that I've ever talked to and sat down has got all of this right. Let's just be clear for a second, because there's a lot that you can do to improve performance of a website. Today we'll be covering a bit of website strategy, the persuasion and conversion process, which is really critical to the performance of any website. We've also got some detail on promotion and how you can look to evaluate whether or not you've got some basic promotional items correct. We'll look at some skills assessment, just some of the things you need to consider when operating a digital store or any sort of website, what sort of skills you need to have available to you to be very successful in this space, and also measurement, which is critical, because if you don't know what you're doing and you can't see any kind of results, how can you improve? And so we'll cover some key metrics as well, and just some details around how to formulate an action plan and get started. So we'll get started today, and this is the best place to start. There are two key competing factors, or two complementary factors, I should say, to website performing well. And that is the persuasion and the promotional components. It is really, really important that you don't do too much work on the promotional side of it until you've got the persuasion and conversion process absolutely nailed. This is a really, really common error that or opportunity to improve that Tom and I have come across over the years, and that is that you can end up spending a lot of money promoting your website and not getting any results. when in actual fact, it may not be the promotion itself that is the problem. It could be the conversion or persuasion process. So we always say, let's work at the bottom of this pyramid first, get the foundation right, and then whatever promotion that you do will be far more successful and far more efficient and give you greater return on investment. So we always start with the base of the pyramid, and sometimes it's important to actually even turn off the promotion if you haven't got the conversion and persuasion right, because you are potentially wasting a lot of money. Right, so attracting the right visitors is important, but setting up that powerful website as a conversion tool is something that has to be there for that promotion to be effective. All right, one of the first things we look at when evaluating a website is trust building. The best way to understand that is if someone's arrived on your website, they have intent behind that visit. If you're selling cookies, for example, and someone ends up on your website, they're probably interested in buying cookies. And so the difference between someone that arrives on your website and buys a cookie and someone that doesn't often has to do with whether or not you've built enough trust with that customer. And so a good way to think about it is there's a scale in people's mind. There's trust on one side and there's risk on the other side. The more you build trust and remove risk, the more the scale tips and the more likely that person is to buy from you. So the first thing you really want to do for build trust is make sure that website loads really quickly and has a good standard website layout that's responsive and works on any device that they may arrive on your website with. All right, once they're there and you've got the opportunity to talk to them, you need to build trust and credibility in a couple of seconds. And this is the first and two steps of the conversion process, getting someone to trust you. Do they believe you? And there are a number of things that you can do to engage people in this space and help them build a bit of trust. A critical part of this is actually even the About Us section on your website. I've found that this is one of the most underutilized tools on websites because it is also one of the more trafficked pages on your website. If you take Zeald, for example, we find that people head to our team pages and our About Us pages at very high volumes. The reason being is when people arrive on the Zeald website, they tend to know that we do websites. What they're looking for in terms of information is who is Zeald and who would I be working with? Those sort of things are critical parts of the trust building process. And so one area to look at is, does your website have an About Us page? And is it detailed? Does it actually have the names of the people behind the company? Does it have pictures of them? Often About Us pages just have a little bit about the business itself, but people generally buy from people. And so if you don't have some detail about who you are on your About Us page, then you should probably look to do that. Another key tip in this area is to add a phone number and address on your Contact Us page. It lets people know that you're a real business in a real location. So that's just a couple of tips, but there are a lot of other things you can do to build trust. A security certificate is another one. Once you incorporate these onto your page and build trust, then you've got the opportunity to try and sell to that person. If you don't get the trust building piece right, you won't even get that opportunity. All right, so you want to bring as much forward as you can onto that homepage to make it feel like you're a real business. You explain to people what is in it for them if they work with you, and that'll help build enough value for them to start moving through the site and looking to see what you provide. We call this positive momentum through the website. And if you don't build a lot of trust, you will not get that. So here's my expert tip. Speed in this case is everything. If you're trying to load a website and it takes ages to load, your first impression is that it's going to take ages to get anything from this business. And so you definitely don't want that. So the first thing you want is to make sure that your website loads ideally under 3 seconds. If you can get it under 2, that's awesome, but that is very difficult to do as well. So the goal is under 3 seconds. And if you don't know how quickly your website loads, then it is really important to use a tool like Pingdom, which has a free speed checking tool that you can Google. There are some other great tools that Google has available, or even Gmetrics. My favorite is using the Pingdom one. It gives you a great report and lets you know how quickly your site is loading. Please be aware that if you're loading your site often, your browser will have cached your website, so it will load quicker for you than it will to a first-time visitor as well. So that's why you use a third-party system rather than trying to load your own site and time it. But that's critical, and it's the first thing we look for, or that you should be looking for, to try and build trust with your customers. So then we get on to the conversion process. Now, we actually had a webinar about conversion and got into a lot of detail on things here earlier on in the week, specifically for e-commerce. But in this context, what we're trying to do is we're trying to make sure that you understand what people's needs are and that you explain what's in it for them. That is probably the most important thing to look at here from a persuasion process. Often people know what you buy or what you sell before they even get to your site. What they're looking for when they arrive on your site is an answer to the why you question, right? Why should they use you for this service over everyone else? And that answering that question should be the first thing you do on the very first page of your website before anyone has gone any further. Right, you should be able to a person should be able to immediately see what the benefit of working with you is. All right, and that's what we call a persuasive, actually value proposition on the homepage, and that is also the first headline. All right, and so that persuasive headline needs to really explain that why question. It may not necessarily talk about what you do. It may be very much about the why, and that is the benefit of working with you. Often I use our website as an example. On the Zeald website, the first line that we talk about isn't actually about websites. It's about the fact that we help businesses to survive and thrive through this crisis. And so it's really about the benefit of working with you that needs to come across. Professional photos and imagery are critical. Right? If you've got a photo that gives a first impression of your business that's not professional, then it's going to be very hard to reverse that first impression and try and get someone to buy from you. And so especially on the homepage, and especially with the first part of the website that loads when you first arrive, which is called what's above the fold, it is critical that has a nice professional image. All right. A CTA, what does a CTA mean? That is a call to action. All right. And so every site needs a call to action. What I mean by this is you have to ask someone to do something for them to do it. All right. So if you arrive on a website, you need to be asking them to go and shop from you. You need to be asking for them to maybe book a consultation with you. There needs to be clear buttons in the right place that encourage people to do something. Those buttons are called call to actions or CTAs. All right. And if you can't see those clearly on your site, then how is a website visitor going to be able to find those actions that you want them to take? So this forms part of what we call a conversion pathway, and it's important that you have a very clear outcome defined for your website. What is the endpoint? With e-commerce, it's pretty straightforward. It's someone actually buying a product from you. But if you provide a service, what does that look like? Is it more a consultation that you provide? Do you have a measure and quote available? Do you have a book online form? All of those things need to be considered and made very, very clear for people to find. Otherwise, it won't happen. And so that's one of the very critical things we always look at, or that you should look at as well, when auditing your own site. Start with the beginning in mind. What do you want people to do? And then work out how easy it is for them to get there. The final 4 steps of this conversion process. So these things here. So what are you meeting my needs? What's in it for me? What do you want from me? And is it worth it? These are all content pieces that need to wrap around that process through to that endpoint that you're trying to achieve. So I often like to start in reverse with websites and think about what is the outcome I want, and then what information to answer these questions do I need to provide to a person to get them all the way through to that end conversion. And so that's quite critical, and you should be really, that's different for every business, but these are the questions you need to think about, provide some content for each of them, and then put them in a really clear, intuitive way on your website so people can discover that content very easily and step through a simple process to then get in touch with you. Here's a really good example, right? And so this website here, I really like this as an example for a persuasive value proposition and some great conversion pathways. All right. So for this particular website, that first line here, it doesn't talk as much about the product itself, which is cosmetic injectables. It talks about the fact that the benefit of taking on the service is that you will regain your confidence and look your best. That is the benefit of working with this organization, is that you're going to end up feeling really good and feeling more positive, right? And you can see that reflected in the image as well. It's a really positive image too. And so the first statement there doesn't actually talk about what is done. It just talks about why you want to do it. And so that creates engagement, it creates positive momentum, and then you have call to action buttons in the most obvious place on the page. In fact, if your eye is drawn to those before anything else because of their color and placement. And so it allows you to work out that you want to find a nurse. So this is a conversion pathway through to, in this case, a store locator. So you can find out where the nearest nurse to you is, or you go straight through to contact us to encourage a phone call. right? So that's a really good example of some simple implementation of those points that will allow a user to very, very quickly get to what you would like them to do, which is book with a nurse or give you a call. So this persuasion process, there's a couple of things that support this really well. Ensuring that your site is mobile compatible is critical. There is 84% of mobile users do initial research online for a product or a service before they make a purchase. That is a lot, all right? And considering that we've got almost a fully saturated market when it comes to people using mobile phones, especially smartphones, that is a huge proportion of the market that will do their research online before actually, they may not necessarily even check out online. They may not necessarily use the website as the final step. They may come in store, they may purchase in a range of other ways. But before they start those processes, they will interact with that business in an online manner through a website, doing their initial research. And this research, this information, 84%, came out like a couple of months ago. I suspect that is much, much higher in the current market. We've had one of our team actually went out to speak to a few retailers this week, or just today, sorry, and his feedback was that people are not going into stores. That retailers are talking about the fact they're struggling to get people actually in store and do any browsing. People are just turning up and buying what they want and leaving. A very transactional approach in store and in retail. And to support that, they have had to do their initial research online so that they know what they want, they know how much it is, and they know who to buy it from before there's been a chance to interact directly with that customer in a retail environment. And I think we're going to see that trend for a while, because it is a little bit awkward if, while we've got shops open at the moment, having to go and fill out your details and sign a registry and things like that for contact tracing does make it a little bit tricky to go in store. And so a lot of people are doing that research beforehand and making it a very quick exercise as well. Click and collect is obviously preferred as well. So 70% of people visited an online store on the web as well. 70% of people visit online stores on the web. So that's just to give you an idea. That is so not all of those transactions are actually going through those online stores. I'd say that's probably quite a bit higher with what we've just been through once again, but it's a great statistic that just shows that even those people who are buying in a physical retail environment are doing a significant proportion of their research and consideration on the website before they get there. And that's why this persuasion process is so important on your website, so that you're engaging with people there and ensuring that they get the right information, so they make a decision to buy from you from what you've presented on the website. Another is a great tool for testing mobile compatibility. You're not going to be able to click on this link because I'm sharing it on a video screen, but if you just Google the mobile friendly tools from Google, that'll pop up nice at the top of the list. That's the great thing about Google. If you're looking for a Google tool, you can Google to find it. So there you go. My expert tip here, and this is something I find time and time again, is that you make sure your phone number is in the top header of the site. Right, so this allows people to give you a call if they ever get stuck. Right, and that does happen on websites. People are looking for very specific pieces of information, and if they can't find it, then having that ability to call you straight away is critical. I remember a couple of years ago, I was working with a firm that released a brand new website. Now, I hadn't actually been involved in the website, but we did a lot of their Google AdWords and their marketing. They launched their website, and everything stopped. And he rang me up in an absolute panic. He was like, "Dara, what's going on? Everything stopped. We're not getting any phone calls. We're not getting any inquiries. What's happened?" And I immediately went to the website and I opened it up, and the new design on the new site that he'd launched did not have a phone number on the top header of the website. It was missing. So to actually find this person's phone number, there was a couple of clicks. And so immediately we got that put in, and the phone started ringing again within minutes. It was literally that simple. That something as simple as just having that phone number in the header of your site can have such a significant impact on your business. That is especially true on mobile. If you're browsing a website on a mobile phone, often all you want to do is give that person a call to ask a very specific question if it becomes difficult to actually find the answer that you need. And so make sure that that phone number is clickable when the site responds on a mobile device. I'd also add one other tip to this as well, is that live chat is incredibly powerful right now. People, as I said, are doing their research more and more online. And if they've got questions that you can answer through a live chat environment, you are far more likely to support them through that conversion process and have an opportunity to influence them or persuade them to buy your product through the answers and information you give them on the live chat. So I recommend that that gets added as well to your site if you haven't already. It's pretty powerful. And so then we get on to promotion, right? So promotion is so once you've got that persuasive component sorted on your website, and it's now in a great shape to be able to make the most out of every single website visitor, you want to try and get as many people as you can to the site. And so that's now we're looking at the top of that pyramid, right? The most powerful way to get people to your site is through Google. All right, we call this the low-hanging fruit. If someone is looking for what you do and where you provide it, you should be getting in front of them through Google. And you can do that in two ways, either through Google Ads or through search engine optimization to get natural traffic to your website. So we can't really go in the context of this webinar, go into the detail on every single item to do with SEO. In fact, we've actually done a whole webinar on SEO previously. You're welcome to check that out on YouTube, but here's some basics for you. This is one of the key factors that influences a site's ability to engage users and get them through from search engines is metadata. All right, this is information that's crafted about each page on your website. It needs to be unique for each page, and it needs to be written in some very specific ways. This will allow you to engage with Google correctly and potentially get you the right traffic that you need through to your website. So here's an example, right? There are three key components to what publishes to Google. This is your title tag or head title. All right, there is your URL, which obviously is the address of the page. It's your domain name plus your address, and then there is the meta description. And so you've got a lot of influence over the title and the description, and you should be writing these specifically for every page on your website. The title tag should be based on keywords that people are searching for your business, and the description should be written for humans so that it's like making a pitch saying why someone should open your website. Controlling, especially the title tag and the meta description, are incredibly important pieces of work. And so if your title tag doesn't specifically, or head title doesn't specifically state what you do, where you provide it, and who you are, then you're missing it. You're going to miss out on opportunities. And I still often see people misusing this tag and having the word home written here. And you might see that pop up in Google search results occasionally where someone has a site and it's just called home. It's because they've written home because that's what they thought it should be because it represents the home page. But that doesn't mean much to someone that's trying to find you. All right. So if you'd like to know more about how to write the titles and descriptions, once again, we've got that full webinar on the basics of SEO available on YouTube for you as well. So that's one of the first things you should always look at from a promotional point of view. Here are some other things to consider, right? And then we're going to move into how you make sure you're measuring things. So external links, so getting other sites to link back to you is an incredibly powerful tool. Or technique, I should say, and that's what's termed as off-page search engine optimization or off-page SEO, getting lots of sites linking through to you and saying this is a great place to go for whatever it is that you provide is a really good technique. You can often do this through things like directory sites or getting articles written about you and linked to you from newspapers is a great way to go as well. Or even just sponsoring your local school and getting them to put a link on their school site back to you as a supporter can be incredibly powerful and help you get more traffic from Google. Reason being is that Google will then see that sort of linking activity as representing you as more of an authoritative business or one that more people work with, and so it's quite a great technique to use. A few other ideas for you. Obviously, Google Ads is very, very powerful. If you haven't tried Google Ads or Google AdWords, I recommend you do. It's a great way to get in front of people very, very quickly. And we have a full webinar about that topic and how to set that up next week. We're covering quite a bit of ground with these webinars. Social media, we had a topic on that, webinar on that last week as well. And so social media is a great way to engage with customers and get them through and expose your products and platforms. Email marketing is another technique that you might like to use, and also Google Shopping. We are seeing some incredible results from Google Shopping at the moment, and this is where you can actually publish a feed of your products through to a Google Merchant Center and have them show up in Google search results as well. Remarketing is a really powerful tool. This allows you to market to people that have visited your site and then go and look at other sites, and you can have some ads that follow them around. You may have seen this sort of friendly stalking before, and it is actually quite an effective way to remind people about your product. If someone's arrived on your site and looked at a particular cookie or a shoe, then having that particular image of that product follow them around on the internet and remind them that it's available is actually quite a powerful technique. And then you've got obviously lots of traditional media options out there as well, TV, radio, print. All of these sort of things will help get more people through to your website. And these are the things you should be considering once you've got that persuasion and conversion process sorted. Online directories I mentioned as well, newsletter advertising too. So and that's not an exhaustive list by any stretch. So when you're looking to run a website, there are a lot of critical skills that you need if you're going to do the whole thing by yourself. So often organizations only have a smaller set of skills. They can run the basics of a website. They might need to engage other people to run certain parts of their operation. And what we're trying to do with this webinar series is help grow your skill set so that you're able to do more of these things yourself and get better results out of your online activities. We also have some support available if you need a bit more help as well. So here's a few of the things that you should probably be looking at. Sorry, it's on this one here. So being able to create those promotional adverts that we were talking about across those different media. Creating and managing search engine advertising campaigns is critical. Being able to do basic search engine optimization skills, or if you're in a very competitive environment and it's really important, maybe some more advanced skills in that area are needed. Improving and creating email marketing campaigns. The most successful businesses I work with online have very strong email marketing programs and have collected large databases of customers to market to in this way. It is very powerful. That's why you often see sites offering coupons or discount codes in exchange for signing up for their mailing list, because once people are on that mailing list, they are more likely to buy. And so it's a very powerful thing to do. Website copywriting skills. So as we've talked about, there are some key things that you need to get across on a website. So we're not just talking about writing some basic text. We're talking about writing text in such a way as that it's compelling and drives engagement and action as well. An understanding of the persuasion process is really important too, so that you can identify where conversion blockers might exist. So we've given you some actually really good tips today on how you can maybe understand this process a little bit better and work out how people might be getting lost on your website and try and correct it and tighten up those pathways. So yeah, that's fixing those persuasion blockers, as I mentioned. And then critically, once you've got all of this sort of understanding and work through these sort of items, you really need to have a robust measurement plan in place so that you can be testing to see the differences between the changes that you make and allow you to continue to tune your program for best results. Okay, and what is also critical here, and a lot of people maybe don't remember, is once you've actually won a customer and you've got them on board and they've bought something from you, make sure you've got a really good follow-up process in place, because that person then could come back and buy more often, and you want to make sure they have a great experience as well. The ability to manage and update core content on your website is critical, and most systems will allow you to do that these days. In terms of measurement, there's a couple of critical pieces that you should be looking towards and understanding. One is how many people are coming to your site. It seems like a pretty obvious one, but it is a key metric. It's not the only metric, because if you had 100,000 people arriving on your site and they did nothing, it wouldn't really help you much as a business. So it is a good metric to measure to see how many people are arriving on your site, but more important is, and obviously how many people are returning, more important is conversion rate. So what is the rate at which people take a significant action on your site after they arrive? And this is a really, really important metric to look at, because this determines the quality of the traffic that you've got. If you have a well-performing website that persuades and converts efficiently, then the conversion rate will be high. If your conversion rate is low, then you need to really look at the base of that pyramid and get that right before you look to do too much promotion. So that's the metric that we're looking to influence quite a lot in today's session. And then the average sale is quite important as well. The more you can get out of each sale, obviously the more you make overall. So to understand metrics, you really need to be looking and using the industry standard Google Analytics system. All right, this is free to use. It's very easy to set up, at least the base setup on a website is just dropping in some code. It's very simple for almost every website platform out there. What can be a little bit more challenging is to get all of the conversions set up correctly. You may need some support from a web developer to get this running accurately, but there is a big benefit in doing so, right? And that is that you can start to see, where does your traffic come from? Do they stay on the site? And more importantly, how much do they spend? And so this is, there's a huge amount of information available in Google Analytics. This is my favorite tab. And if you are to look at auditing how your website is performing and look at how your marketing is performing, then this is where you go. It's the acquisition tab in Google Analytics. It allows you to look at all the different sources of traffic, what the quality is like. And so without even knowing the conversions here, you can tell that the paid search traffic is of higher quality than the natural traffic because the bounce rate is lower. People are more likely to stay on the site and continue to browse for traffic that has come from paid search than what has come from organic search. All right. Obviously, there's a lot more volume here, and so that's why you've got more revenue coming through. But it is very powerful, and you'll actually see there's some great direct results coming through as well. That's people going directly to typing in the domain name. Social is pretty straightforward. Referral is those sites that people click from to that website, and that can be very powerful too. If you've got someone recommending you as a supplier and linking to your site, you can often get some great results out of that, and that is often why we see referrals start to climb to be so high in terms of dollar values or conversions as well. So becoming familiar with this tab and this specific information on this page is the best way to begin to be able to analyze and audit your own website results. You can dive much deeper into this and click through into the paid search and look at the individual keywords influencing this. You can click through into the referral section and find out the sites that are specifically referring to you. All of that information is available to you, but as a dashboard, this is a really powerful one for being able to understand how your site is going and what's working well. So we've covered a lot today. I think the really important thing is that once you've gone through each of these items, you maybe note down where the opportunities are to improve, write out a really good list of what needs to be done or what needs to be addressed, and then put them in order of importance as well. What's really important to be done, what's going to help me get the most out of my site, and also balance that with how easy it is to do. So there's a decision-making process there around, nice simple things to do that are going to have the greatest impact, and start with those. All right. And then put your plan into action. And my tip is, don't try and do everything all at once. It's impossible. It will be overwhelming. Just chunk it. So do one thing to improve your site today. So if there was one thing that we covered today, you went, hey, I could do that. Go and make that change today. And then do another thing tomorrow or do another thing next week. But create that action list and then just slowly start working through those tips and tricks, and you'll end up with a site that's performing incredibly well and hopefully getting you the results that you deserve online. So I'll hand it back over to Lisa.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Jara, for that talk. There's certainly a few things in there that I know can definitely help a lot of people. So I'd just like to now also welcome Tom for our discussion panel. Thanks for coming along today, Tom.
You're welcome. Good to be here.
Yeah. Isn't it always? So,
Yeah.
I mean, just to start things off, and obviously for everyone out there, now's the time if you want to ask questions to use the Q&A and chat features here. But what do I do if I can't actually change something on my website, in particular text, from the tips I've learnt today?
Yeah. Okay. So it would be a question of determining where you couldn't make those changes. And perhaps understanding why. It may be that the text you want to change, like Joe was saying, is putting a phone number in the top right-hand corner of the site, and you can't do that because it's perhaps in the header, and the header is often locked. Because if you make changes in the header, sometimes if you don't know what you're doing, you can break the website. So that might be a reason. Another reason might be that, as I have seen before, people have put the text in as images, and of course you can't change the text on an image. So it's understanding those things. But it also may be that it is just locked. In that case, you'd need to contact the developer to see if they can unlock it, or sometimes it may be a full rebuild. So yeah, it just depends. But that may be maybe that helps.
Yeah,
Cool.
it's probably worth noting as well that most modern systems allow you to get at everything you need, and make significant changes. So if you're kind of stuck, not being able to make changes on your website, you probably need to consider the technology that's deployed as well. As Tom said, like if it's stuck in an image, you're not going to be able to edit it or anything like that. But you really should. I think it's most providers these days should provide you a site that you can do at least the basic edits on.
Yeah, it's a great point. I mean, if you're on an old piece of technology like that, it's probably worth considering upgrading anyway, because it's probably going to reach end of life at some stage. And if it is an image, the other thing is that Google can't index all those words that are on that image, so you're losing a lot of ground in terms of SEO.
Yeah, it's a great point. Yeah.
Oh, very good. And I know we touched on the About Us page and sort of, having information on there. So what sort of detail should be on there?
Yeah, no, the About Us page is really, really important. It's about making it personable. And it's about really touching on hot topics and things like that. For instance, if you're involved in perhaps some sort of construction, people will want to know, do you have a health and safety policy? And those sort of things where people are really wanting to know the nitty-gritty about you, your company ethos, who you are as people. They want to understand who it is that they can partner with. So if that information's not there and it's more sort of brief and generic, it's not going to win you any favors with them. They want to know who you are, what makes you tick, and that's what the sort of information that needs to be there.
Okay, that's fantastic. And another thing as well, I know because we just briefly touched on ranking as well, then a security certificate, how can I sort of tell if I have one and how important is it?
Yeah, you can tell really easily. The top if you go to your website, right beside your URL or your website address, you'll have either a padlock that's nice and green, or it'll be open and red and the HTTP will be crossed out. That's actually doing a lot of damage in terms of your ranking and potential for visitors to be able to see your website. It's actually also one of the simpler things to be able to fix. With pretty much a phone call or an email to the person who's hosting your domain, you can have a security certificate applied. So it's really important to go straight to your website, have a look up there and check that. Really simple to do.
Awesome. And we talked about mobile compatibility today. So I just know that some people tend to have, m. and then their website URL. Generally, that's a different site, if I remember correctly. Is that a good way to do that, or how should I have mobile compatibility on my website?
Yeah, that's really quite an old technique now that is quite defunct. There is absolutely no reason today with modern technology, with the layouts, the way we do things, that it shouldn't all be the one website that just aligns according to, it detects and aligns to the device. So that's really the way to have it. There's absolutely no need to have two sites, one for desktop and one for mobile. No, it should align quite easily.
Yeah, and people have got more than just like a desktop and a mobile these days, right? So you've got tablets and all sorts of different screens and sizes, and what's important is when you have a responsive design as opposed to a mobile version, it also does the opposite too. So if someone's got a big massive screen that they use on their desktop, the website fills that space and looks really good there too. I see that as one thing. You often see an older site that's got some older design techniques to it. It sits down this very narrow channel, very fixed width, and if you look at it on a big screen, which a lot of people use, especially home offices, if you've got external screens, you see this big huge gap on the sides, and it looks really, looks dated actually. So a responsive design allows you to kind of hit that mobile market, but also that other market as well, who maybe have those larger screens too.
And that's also a matter of trust and credibility as well, to some degree, because you're looking at your competitors, and they may have that full width, really flash, modern looking website, and you're sitting there with a strip down the middle. They're comparing businesses, who should I do business with? And a lot of the time people buy with their eyes and they trust those that are modern and up to date.
Fantastic. So I know there was a lot that we've covered today in the webinar, but your advice to people, as a website owner, where should I sort of look first to start?
Yeah, I think one of the first things that we should do when we're looking to sort of audit the website, the first question we really need to ask ourselves is does the website goal align with the business goal? I mean, that's one of the critical parts, because if it's not doing that, then we're missing the mark completely. And then from there, we can go into our trust and credibility elements. Does it build trust and credibility fast? Is there a call to action on there? Does it show a perceived value? And those sort of elements then fall into place. So yeah, that's sort of really critical, that the website goals must match the business goals.
And any advice from you, Jara, as well?
I feel like I want to just say one thing that I've already said again, which is about the phone number, right? It's just like, I always look at that first, right? And so I'll look at a website and kind of go, right, does it have a phone number? And then I'll check on mobile to see if it stays there. And so you'll often have sites that have the mobile number when you're on desktop, and then you switch to mobile, it responds, and the phone number disappears. And it's like, but I'm on a phone, I want the number. So that's the first thing that I would always look for, is just that critical ability to give someone a call. Every business owner that I've talked to says, if I can actually get someone on the phone and talking to them, then there's a really good chance that I can get them the information they need and persuade them on the sale. So that's still, while we're thinking about websites as being critical to this whole process, that ability to have someone talk to you over the phone is really vital. And the reason for that is, if you've got a service business, then there's a lot of research from Google that says people need their questions answered within about an hour of starting their decision-making process, or you're going to miss out on the job. And so what you need to do is make sure that information is either really well covered on the website, so that they get that question answered and they can make their purchasing decision almost immediately, or have that mechanism which allows people to start asking questions through the phone call. And that's one that most people are comfortable with, though we are seeing a trend towards live chat as being almost as popular at the moment as well. So that's my tip, really, is just make it easy for people to get in touch. And if that's not clear how people can do that on your site, then you simply will be missing out on a lot of business.
I definitely agree with that. I know quite often it takes too long to find store hours, so I'll be driving, somewhere, and I'll just quickly ring just to be like, what are the store hours? Can I pop in now? Kind of thing. It's very helpful, especially if you're right now, when probably time's of the essence. You might not want to be sort of driving around too much and be out too much, and so it's that whole directiveness of, I just want to go somewhere, grab what I need, and get back. So I think that's probably quite true where we are today.
Yep.
Yeah, and answering those questions is just such an interesting topic for me as well. Because if you've got people ringing up on the phone and they're asking the same question, then you should probably have that information on your site, right? And so you'll know, because you're working with clients, what are their burning questions, what's important to them, and I suppose that's a really good exercise to go through if you're trying to audit your own website right now. Is go, what are the questions I'm getting on the phone, and what do I have to answer generally to get people to buy from me? And am I being really upfront about that? Am I getting that information across really quickly on that site, or am I potentially losing people because I'm not providing that information?
Yeah, and the same point is also for product-specific questions as well. If you have an e-com store, if there's loads of questions that you're getting about products that are you're answering on a repetitive basis, have those Q&As on the product page as well.
Great point. Yeah.
Fantastic tips for all today. So thank you so much to both of you. I'll just run into our overview for today. So let's recap on what we've talked about. So COVID-19 has changed a lot of the world, but don't be too surprised by that. The need for online and digital were becoming more apparent. We saw online food shopping starting to take off. So really, COVID-19 just sped up this need and progress. So what do we currently know? Alert Level 2 has seen a large amount of businesses reopening with restrictions in place. There's been a large amount of people also waiting in lines to get inside. So once this novelty of freedom has worn off after the lockdown, a lot of people could be returning to shopping online. There's also been a lot of new people who have shopped online and really enjoyed it, so they are going to continue from that too. One of the opportunities in particular related to today is that audit your website now and have it be your virtual storefront that people can easily find, just like you would your normal store. Lots of people spent time on their window, what's in their windows. Think about that as your website. A prediction, the those businesses that do work out ways to balance and operate between two new audiences that have now appeared, those who are happy to go out and shop and those who want to stay at home, will be the most successful businesses going forward. And my recommendation is still for those that have been able to reopen but don't have a website or appropriate measures in place, should act now and prepare for what the potential future changes may be. And just before I hand it over to Jara, I would like to take this chance to thank both Tom and Jara for their thoughts and input today. I'm sure everyone has been able to take away at least one piece of information or step that they need to take from what has been shared by you both.
Cool. Thank you very much, Lisa. So Zeald has been helping businesses with their digital transformation for over 20 years. Well, for 20 years, I should say, not quite over yet. COVID-19 has made the work that we do even more critical. It's forced business in New Zealand to adopt digital technology at a rate faster than ever. What was going to be predicted to take maybe 5, maybe 10 years naturally is actually kind of being forced on us to happen now in weeks and months. So Zeald wants to help as many Kiwi businesses through this as possible. We see it as our responsibility to help as many Kiwi businesses survive and perhaps thrive in this new world based on our experience and our ability to help it scale. So this week we relaunched our Get E-commerce movement, version 2 of this initiative. Applications are open now for businesses to get a free e-commerce website set up, and the offer also comes with 12 months worth of zero-rated hosting, the only charge being a 2% success fee. So we've worked very hard to get this up and running, and we have the capacity to deploy 50 e-commerce sites per week on an ongoing basis. So if you or anyone you know wants to sell online or needs to sell online to survive through this, get them to go along to zeald.com and register to get themselves a gem site, is what we're calling it. Also, if you would like expert digital advice or kind of a free session with one of our digital business strategists, that is available too. Please just let us know if you would like this in our feedback form that we'll be sending out later on today. Our next webinar is Wednesday, the 20th of May. I touched on that briefly. We're covering the basics of Google Ads, Google Ads 101. If you'd like to know more about this powerful tool, then join us next Wednesday for a real practical session. Nidhi, I believe, is joining us to run that one, and I'm really looking forward to her teaching us a little bit more about this space. Special thanks to our moderator, Lisa, and panelist, Tom Griffith, today. It's always a pleasure to work with you too, and that is the time all the time we have for folks. If you know anyone that might benefit in attending these webinars in the future, please feel free to share the register page, and also we have a recording of this going up on YouTube later on today. Wish you a good day and good luck.